Bigfoot, Dogman, Jersey Devil, and others. Are they real? Figments of our imagination? Or the most cleverly disregarded reality of all time? Come into the cabin. Let's sit down and find out together. Hey guys, welcome back to the cabin. I'm Robbie.
Yeah, I'm here. This is Johnny.
Hey, he's Johnny. We're normalists tonight. He's back on the, what is it, Johnny? The Band-Aid bus?
The Band-Aid bus.
He's on the Band-Aid bus again tonight.
Or the Wambulance.
Wambulance. Like. He's handing out French fries. We miss you, Norm. Norm should be back with us next episode or so. He had to switch shifts, so. So, Johnny, what do you know about Skinwalkers?
They're creepy as hell.
Yeah, that's true. What do you know about the Oklahoma Girlscout Murders?
More than I want to.
Yeah, I had you read that. That was kind of creepy, wasn't it?
That is beyond creepy. I understand why all those cops quit.
Yep. So, folks, we're going to be talking about Skinwalkers, and we're going to kind of use a case from June 13th of 1977, Oklahoma Girlscout Murders. And Johnny likes deep diving down rabbit holes, but I think this one kind of even scared him.
Yeah, I could have stayed ignorant of this the rest of my life.
Yeah. So, you want me to give you the brief rundown of the story, Johnny?
Yeah, fire away.
So, June 13th of 1977, there were some girls between the ages of 8 and 10, I believe there was 3 of them, that were murdered at this Girl Scout camp in Oklahoma. This was, and when I say murdered, I don't mean they were just strangled, or they were brutally murdered. I think one of them was even raped. Let me just read the little synopsis here. That'll be a lot easier. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders took place on the morning of June 13th, 1977 at Camp Scott in Mays County, Oklahoma, in the United States. The victims were three Girl Scouts between the ages of 8 and 10 who were raped and murdered. Their bodies were left on the trail leading to the campsite showers about 150 yards from their tent. The case was classified as solved when Gene Leroy Hart, a local jail escapee with a history of violence and rape, was arrested. However, Hart was acquitted in March of '79 after a jury unanimously returned a verdict of not guilty. In 2022, it was announced that DNA testing in the case, although officially inconclusive, strongly suggests Hart's involvement in the crime. The case remains officially unsolved. So, less than 2 months before the murders, during an on-site training session, a counselor at Camp Scott discovered that her belongings had been ransacked and her donuts had been stolen. Inside the empty donut box was a handwritten note stating in capital letters, "We are on a mission to kill 3 girls in one tent." The director of the camp session treated the note as a prank, and it was disregarded.
Bad idea?
Very bad idea. So, leading to the discovery of the bodies, at around 7 p.m. on Sunday, June 12th, 1977, the night before camp started, the girls huddled in their tents. Among them were Lori Lee Farmer, 8 years old, Doris Denise Milner, 10, and Michelle Heather Goose, G-U-S-E, who was 9. The girls were all residents of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, a suburb of Tulsa. They were sharing tent number 7 in the camp's Kiowa unit, which was located farthest from the camp counselor's tents and partially obscured by the camp showers. At around 6 a.m. on June 13th, a camp counselor on her way to the shower saw a girl's body, in a sleeping bag in a wooded area, just outside. I lost my place. Let me just back up. Sorry, I lost my place when I had to cough. Sorry, folks. At around 6 a.m. on June 13th, the camp counselor on her way to the shower saw a girl's body in a sleeping bag in a wooded area just outside the tent area. It was discovered that all 3 girls from tent number 7 were missing. As counselors began searching, they discovered all 3 girls from tent number 7 had been murdered. 2 bodies were inside the sleeping bag, crumpled towards the bottom of the bag. 1 body was visible on the outside. They had been left on the trail, leaving the showers about 150 yards from their tent. Subsequent testing showed that they had been bludgeoned and strangled. All 3 girls had been raped. So all 3 of them were raped. I thought one of them had, but all 3 of them were. A large red flashlight was found on top of the girls' bodies. A smudged fingerprint was found on the lens, but it has never been identified, and it was too smudged for a positive identification. A footprint from a 9.5 shoe size was also found in blood in the tent. Between 2:30 and 3 a.m. on June 13th, a landowner reported hearing quite a bit of traffic on a remote road near the camp. Camp Scott was evacuated and was later shut down. So, all that's bad. But that's, as bad as it is, right now on the face, that's, typical crime scene, typical, horrible crime, but nothing really out of the way so far, right? Other than the fact that those 3 girls were horribly and brutally murdered. On the face, nothing stands out as particularly weird.
Yeah, no supernatural, just
All right,
sick.
So now let's get into the suspect. Gene Leroy Hart, born November 27th, 1943, and he died June 4th, 1979, 2 years after these murders. He'd been at large since 1973 after escaping from Mays County Jail. He'd been convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women, as well as 4 counts of first-degree burglary. Raised about a mile from Camp Scott, Hart, a member of the Cherokee Nation, was arrested within a year at the home of a Cherokee medicine man. He was represented by Garvin A. Isaacs, a local Oklahoma attorney. He was tried in March of '79.
The attorney?
The Hart.
The attorney should have been tried.
Well, yeah, that's true. And later on in the story, you're really going to think that. He was tried in March of 1979, although the local sheriff pronounced himself 1,000% certain that Hart was guilty. A local jury acquitted him. As a convicted rapist and jail escapee, Hart still had 305 years of his 308-year sentence left to serve in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary. So he was out because he escaped, and he was serving a 308-year sentence, of which he had 305 years left to go. So on June 4th, 1979, 2 years after the murders, Hart collapsed and died of a heart attack at age 35, about an hour after lifting weights and jogging in the prison exercise yard. 2 of the families later issued the Magic Empire Council and its issuers for $5 million alleging negligence. So there was some lawsuits that came about this. The civil trial included discussion of the threatening note and the fact that tent number 7 was 86 yards from the counselor's tent. In 1985, by a 9-3 vote, jurors decided in favor of Magic Empire. So the family didn't even win this lawsuit. So, Tyler, if you will roll on down till we find out about the... Stop right there where it says legacy. Okay. Richard Gus, the father of one of the 3 victims, went on to help the state legislature pass an Oklahoma Victims Bill of Rights. He also helped found the Oklahoma Crime Victims Compensation Board. So there were some important things that came out of this, but there was a lot of weird stuff. So the supernatural stuff, you ready for all this stuff, Johnny?
Yeah.
Okay. It was never told how he escaped from prison. That was never figured out. While they were chasing him after he was found to be part of this investigation, they would get close to him, close enough to see him running in the woods, and they were chasing him. And he would go behind a tree, and they would see a black dog come out from the other side. or an owl. And this went on for a pretty good while they were chasing him. You know, they get close, he'd take off, run behind a tree, dog or bird of some kind would, yeah, that one right there, titled Shapeshifter Girl Scout Murders. That's probably the one that's going to. So they finally, what they had to do is they brought in what they call Old Smoke. They went and got somebody who had another shaman who had some of the same type of magic that they were claiming that Hart had. So this guy went straight to where he was at. Or whether he knew where he was at or whether he sensed where he was at, whatever it was, he went straight to where the guy was at. Went in, touched him on the bottom of the foot, and told him he took his medicine or took his magic from him. He never escaped after this. Because he went to trial, was acquitted of that, but obviously he went straight back to jail because he was, he was still serving that sentence. And then died 2 years after that from a heart attack at 35. So that's kind of a weird story, ain't it?
It's disturbing.
So
without the supernatural.
Yeah, without the supernatural stuff. And, you kind of hinted on it. There was 20 plus veteran officers that just up and quit after this case. They were just like, I'm done, had enough, ain't doing it no more. The sheriff, there was supposedly an affair that was going on with the sheriff's wife and Hart. Sheriff pretty much zeroed in on Hart. There was a guy who brought his own son in. Supposedly the guy's son was the one that the bloody footprint they found in the tent, that was supposedly his son's shoe. Because his dad found his shoe with the blood on it, questioned him about it, and he finally admitted to his dad. His dad took him in, and the sheriff said, nah, we got our suspect. There's a lot of weird stuff, just from the law enforcement standpoint, that is just weird. So, do you know what you have to do to become a skinwalker? Have you heard this?
Yeah, something deep and dark. Something unforgivable.
Like brutally murdering and raping 3 young girls, maybe?
Well, it sounds like he was that prior to messing with the kids.
But that kind of stuff would... Well, see, the thing is, he didn't act alone. There's no way that this was done by himself. So was he helping somebody else to go through this? Because, like I said, there were other people that were implicated in this, but they were never brought to trial on it.
I can't believe Johnny Cash helped narrate a documentary on this.
He's got the voice for it, though.
Yeah, but maybe that's what made him the Man in Black.
Maybe.
God, that's rough. Yeah, the Skinwalker actually makes more sense than
some of the autopsies. And Mike from Abnormal Investigation was the one that was telling us about this story. He's the expert on it. He said that some of those wounds or some of the things that were done to those little girls, there's no way a human would have had strength to do that. So this is one of them stories that's just like, where does it go? What's the real story?
Because I dated a Navajo for a little while when I was in the Army. They will not discuss this in the slightest. Any of the Skinwalker stuff, they just get...
Yeah, Navajo are really, really tight-lipped about this. Just like the Cajuns are with the Rougarou. There's a lot of, maybe not some of the ones that live on the outskirts, but some of those Cajuns live deep in the swamps and the bayous. They're not going to talk about the Rougarous. A lot of it for the same reason that Navajo won't talk about Skinwalker, because Navajo believe Skinwalker will come down on them if they talk about it, whereas the Cajuns believe that if you speak the name of the Rougarou that you will turn into one. So, let's see. Tyler brought something up here. What was that again? Tyler said, I know men were involved in the Jean Leroy Hart manhunt from the Girl Scout murders. It was actually shifting with the help of a Kiowa, an old Cherokee shaman. In fact, his shifting was so bad, there were several shamans in the courtroom conducting cleansing ceremonies at all times. The stories of his use of other people's glasses to see their own vision was creepy as hell. The only way they caught him was the use of several shamans from different tribes, which is, like I was talking about, the old smoke. One of whom was the twin brother of the dark shaman Hart was actually using for his spells. Now, see, there was a couple of times after, when they were interviewing him after they caught him, that they were asking him, how he got away and all that stuff. Sounds like an explosion. But they were asking him, questions about, how he got away or how that he knew, and he told them he was watching them from above and below. Now, think about that old satanic culture or ritual, as above, so below.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, that's a Wiccan ceremony. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of intertwines with this.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like you were saying, you have to do something so dark and so twisted and so sinister to become a skinwalker. It's something you're never going to come back from.
And messing with the innocence is...
Yeah.
That's definitely...
So, I think you're onto something. I think Hart probably already was or was well on his way. But maybe he was helping some of these other guys to go into that.
Yeah, the 9.5 shoe, that's... I haven't had a chance to find much more on that. But I won't leave this one alone.
Yeah, you're going to do a deep dive on this one, ain't you?
Yeah. Give me bad dreams. Bad juju.
Yeah, it's definitely... Yeah, because like I said, when we were talking about it, let's get into some of the stuff leading up to it. June 12th, 1977, the Girl Scout Camp Scott section known as the westernmost end of the 410-acre property. Location may have been chosen because of its remoteness. That's kind of a normal thing as far as when somebody's wanting to commit a big crime like this. They're going to scout things out and case it out, which obviously that was done by the evidence of the note in the donut box. The closest tent to the crime scene was 75 feet away, and the nearest counselor's tent was 100 yards away. The victims were 9, 10, and 8. There was a man's effigy found hanging from a tree by its neck, and personal items were disappearing from tents before this. This is all leading up to it. And there was a storm that it was around 6 p.m. It was causing heavy rain, and because of the weather, the campers were sent back to their tents. So they were probably supposed to be somewhere else, and because of this rainstorm, they were sent back to their tents. Approximately 1:30 a.m., moaning was heard near Kiowa. Carla, a camp counselor, checked out the noise and described the noise as low, guttural moaning. It would stop whenever the beam of her flashlight came near. Now, of course, they left all this stuff out of the court case. Then approximately 2 a.m., a tent flap of tent number 7 was opened. 3 of the girls were inside sleeping, and a 4th girl stated that she noticed a beam of light moving around the interior, from outside, with the silhouettes of a large figure behind it. The figure moved off towards tent number 8. The moaning sounds were heard throughout the night, not just by those in the Kiowa section, but in 4 other units of the camp. Approximately 3 a.m., the girls in the Cherokee section across the woods heard a scream come from the direction of the Kiowa about 2 city blocks away. A girl in the Quapaw, I guess, I probably butchered that, also heard a scream. The scream seemed to be I'm assuming that says mama. I don't. The girl thought that it may have been the voice of Lori Farmer, which is one of the girls. Approximately 6 a.m., Carla found the sleeping bags under a tree near the intersection in a pile. The bodies of Doris Milner was found nude from the waist down. Her PJ top was pulled up underneath her arms. Her hands had been tied behind her back with duct tape, and she had been beaten in the face. Around her neck, a cord of an elastic bandage were visible. A round cylinder-shaped object about 4 inches long, made of terry cloth, was attached to the cord. The elastic bandage had been used as a blindfold. The terry cloth object was used as a gag. Michelle, Heather, Gus, and Lori Farmer were found inside the sleeping bags. Both bodies had been bound in a tight, compact, fetal position. Some of the evidence: Gus and Farmer's sleeping bag contained bloody bed sheets that had been used by the killer to wipe down the blood found in the wood floor of the tent. Also found a black roll of duct tape and the flashlight the murderer had discarded. Jack Shorf, the owner of a farm 2 miles away, or 2 miles west of Camp Scott, in his house had been broken into. Some items were taken, were a sash, a cord, a roll of duct tape, 3 bottles of beer, and 3 identical crowbars. The beer bottles were later found empty on the campground. Outside Schroff's door, a Jungle Boot style print was also found. It matched the other boot print found near the crime scene. So there's a lot of stuff that points to multiple people being involved in this, but the sheriff only ever went after the Hart, just after that one person. So.
And they acquitted him after only 5 hours.
Now, that's kind of another interesting point. You know, he was tried by a jury of his peers, and he was supposedly well respected in this community. I translate respected as feared.
Feared, yeah.
I think the thing is, I think a lot of people knew what he was and what he could do, and they weren't about to send back a guilty plea for that because they were scared of what he would do to them. Even after these other shamans supposedly come in and took his magic from him, they were still scared.
Yeah. Well, sounds like a mixed bag, you know, on the whole court proceedings. Everything's all over the place with it. But I'm with you about the fear of his peers. But that is what we call a shit show. Mm-hmm. There's no upside to it.
No,
it's terrible all the way around. I can't imagine that. The campground closed down after that and never reopened.
No, you can't get in there either now anymore.
Oh, they didn't put a Walmart there?
No, it is. It's completely shut down. Matter of fact, Mike tried to go down there, and they told him, "You're not Indian enough to get in here." And there's also plenty of rumors that it's haunted now too, which wouldn't surprise me. So this is just a crazy, weird, scary incident, and most all this stuff is documented. This isn't like a hearsay.
Yeah, this isn't hearsay. This isn't tribal spoken lore.
Yeah, there are people who have no Indian affiliation at all that saw this kind of weird stuff. Some of those guys that just up and quit, they're just normal, average, everyday people that were seeing things like these dogs running out from behind trees and these birds flying out from behind trees that they were chasing this guy. I mean, that's
creepy.
yeah. I mean, and it was good enough to make them decide they were done.
Wow. I don't know what else to say about that.
It's wild. I
mean, there's people still interested in it and they're digging into it, but that's 40 years ago. But that 4-part miniseries, I'm considering doing a Hulu thing just for that.
I just got a message. I wonder if these are connected. March 17th, 1977, Shirley Vian is found bound and strangled in her apartment at 1311 South Hydraulic. And then December 8th, 1977, Nancy Fox is found bound and strangled in her home, 843 South Pershing. The killer calls police to report a homicide from a payphone at Central and St. Francis. That's around the same time, so I wonder if that's related.
Well, it sounds like his, what do you call it, M.O.?
Yeah. But like I said, I think he was trying to help somebody else walk down the path he was walking. I mean, just sitting back listening to the story and listening to that these other, and they were younger guys, they were younger than him, that were involved in it.
Well, he wore an 11 and a half, and they were in a 9 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, supposedly the father even brought the boot or whatever it was that made the bloody impression, and he brought that in. And he's just like, nope, we got our guy.
And an angry, vindictive sheriff messed up the entire case.
Yeah. I mean, the court let somebody go that was definitely guilty. He was 100% involved.
But they tried him on the res, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the crime was committed on the res, so they kind of had to. But they could have still moved for a change of venue and went to a different res. I would think, anyway. Somewhere where he's not
known.
Yeah.
If his juju was that strong, he was probably known across all the reses.
Probably, but you got these other medicine men they brought in that weren't scared to go after him. So, and like that graphic that Tyler pulled up where it said, Mike may have said it and I just may have missed it, but I didn't hear that they had other shaman in the courtroom constantly chanting cleansing spells to keep him from. The way I took it is when the medicine man, the old shaman that helped track him down, supposedly when he touched him on the bottom of the foot, he told him he took his magic from him, and he never shifted again or never escaped again after that, and 2 years later died in prison, a place that they couldn't keep him in before.
That's wild.
So
makes you think.
Yeah. So this is, I just I just found out about this story, a couple of weeks ago, and it's just been a whirlwind of stuff that I've found about this stuff or about this case since then. It's mind blowing. Like I said, you take away the supernatural stuff, and it's just from a law enforcement standpoint, it's just mind blowing how they botched this investigation. I mean, obviously it was cut and dry that he was involved. There was plenty of stuff and plenty of evidence that was not even circumstantial evidence that linked him with the case. But then, you had the other way. You got a father bringing his own son in saying, hey, he admitted he was there and he was part of it. I mean, how do you just dismiss that and say, nope?
Has there ever been any follow-up stuff with the kid?
Nope. Not to my knowledge, there hadn't. So, you got one, possibly two or three more that were involved in a brutal killing of 3 of these innocent girls, and they're just out walking around.
No.
And it's not like you could go back and try him again after if they
double jeopardy.
Yeah, because he was acquitted, so he was done. I mean, he got what he deserved. A couple years later, he never left prison again. But Still, he went to his grave being acquitted of something very brutal and very heinous. I mean, I'm sure he was convicted of other things that he did, he wouldn't have been serving a 300-year sentence.
That sounds pretty heinous.
Yeah. So I think you're right. I think he probably already was, there, especially if the stories about the dog and the bird are to be believed, that they're chasing him and all of a sudden,
Yeah, moves behind a tree and bird flies out.
Yeah. And he told him he was watching from above and below. So that's scary.
It makes a lot of sense. Well, wow. Thanks for helping my sleep pattern.
You're not going to sleep after this one, are you, Johnny?
No.
So, well, that's about all I got on this case. And Skinwalkers, I don't think we need to talk about them anymore.
It used to be entertaining. Now it's like tainted.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for this show, folks. If y'all want to get in touch with us, our email address is what'sreallyouthere2022@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Facebook, What's Really Out There. Follow us on YouTube, What's Really Out There. We're on Spreaker, iHeart, Spotify, all the places where you get your podcasts. And Johnny has actually upgraded. He's not just smoke signals now. Tell him, Johnny.
I'm doing pictographs and telegraphs.
We are moving up in the world, folks. So you can still get your smoke signals to him, but he can also take telegraph and pictograph now.
High tech.
Yep. We're working on trying to get him ready for cave paintings, but that's baby steps. All right, Johnny, got anything else?
No, I'm mentally taxed now.
All right, folks. Well, we'll catch you next time in the cabin. I'm Robbie.
No, I'm Johnny.
We'll see you next time.